Now, page 4, reviving the presidential free shot, the weekly presidential address. Advisors to President Trump apparently do not think speaking directly and unfiltered to the American people is of value to this republic and to the 45th president of the United States. Well, those advisors are wrong. Now, the weekly address has its roots in one of the most infamous moments in American history. Franklin Roosevelt proffered weekly radio addresses in the 1930s and 1940s during the Depression and on into World War II. It's very much a part of U.S. history and in the history books. These radio chats went away until 1982 when President Reagan revived them. And Reagan used them to his advantage for the remainder of his time in the Oval Office. But it wasn't until Barack Obama that the audio-only address morphed into video. Very politically savvy move. A president looking eyeball to eyeball with the American people, which brings us to the 45th president. He had been recording weekly video addresses for the first few months of his administration. However, no more. The Trump administration stopped presidential addresses cold. This is a mistake. After all, both radio and television and countless internet platforms clear the weekly address unedited. What better way for President Trump to get out his unfiltered message? It is a presidential tradition that could and should be revived by Team Trump immediately. Meantime, the Democrat response carries on, featuring partisan attack dogs like Hawaii Senator Brian Schatz.
But it's true. Republicans really are coming after your Medicare and your Medicaid.
Stop, Dave. This is pathetic. They tried to do this to Ronald Reagan in the 1980s. Ronald Reagan's going to take away your Medicare. Of course, it was a lie back then, and it's a lie now. Now he's insinuating that President Trump and the rest of the Republican Party are going to take away Medicare. Here's the reality. It's the political third rail. No one wants to touch it, except this president is beginning to deal with it. He's trying to cut back certain elements of Medicare, part of the $220 trillion unfunded liability. Medicare is a large chunk of that $220 trillion unfunded liability that all Americans owe, and someday we're going to have to pay the bill, but no one, including this guy on Capitol Hill, wants to address and touch the third rail of politics in Washington, D.C., and that's what to do about Medicare, and throw in their Social Security, which is even a bigger problem and a bigger portion of that $220 trillion unfunded liability. No one wants to talk about it, except apparently this White House, which has the guts to even bring it up. Roll tape.
A campaign slogan or an overstatement. It's right there in the budget that the president released this week.
Stop tape. Okay, so what is your solution, smart guy? What are you going to do about Medicare, for example, and Social Security? The actuaries are telling us that Medicare is going to go broke, as in bankrupt, not just on paper, but it's going to become insolvent in about 4 or 5 years. 4 or 5 years. That's 4 or 5 years. That's very, very soon that Medicare will be insolvent. Social Security insolvent somewhere in the neighborhood. I'm hearing, the last I heard, the actuaries were saying somewhere around 10 years. So what is your plan? What is your plan, Senator, to fix this problem? Well, the modern Democrat Party only wants to increase Medicare spending and have more people, like Barack Obama, had more people receiving Social Security and different kinds of benefits that come from Social Security, like disability. Disability exploded under the 44th President of the United States, and that's what the modern Democrat Party wants. It wants a bunch of Americans, millions and tens of millions of Americans, dependent on the government in order to survive. So they'll keep voting in the Democrats in power so they can keep their stipend coming in. You see how this works? It's a vicious circle. And this guy's right in the middle of it. Roll tape.
It's got $1.5 trillion in cuts to Medicaid and $845 billion in cuts to Medicare.
Stop tape. These are drops in the bucket. Remember that number, $220 trillion in unfunded liability. $800 billion is a rounding error at Department of Social Security or at Medicare. We need to overhaul these systems or they are going to go broke.
Want to see more videos like this? Click on the link below and subscribe to One America News on YouTube, and call your cable provider and kindly demand that One America News is added to your lineup. Call and subscribe today.